In this video, I'm going to break down 5 success rules that most people never discover because they are not comfortable, they are not motivational, and they require something most people will never give up, who they currently are. Every man you have ever envied, the one who walks into a room and people feel it. He doesn't speak loudly, he doesn't try hard, but somehow the air shifts when he enters. You've seen him and you've asked yourself, what does he have that I don't? Here's what you tell yourself. Maybe it's genetics, maybe it's money, maybe he just got lucky. And that answer is comfortable, because if it's luck, you don't have to change. If it's genetics, you're off the hook. If it's money, you can blame the circumstances, but the comfortable answer is almost always the wrong one. The world will give you a motivational answer. They'll tell you discipline, consistency, hard work, and that answer is also incomplete. Because if that were true, you would already be him. You've tried discipline, you've tried routines, you've tried cold showers, you've tried starting again every Monday, and yet you're still stuck in the same version of yourself, same job, same habits, same ceiling. Not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, but because no one ever told you the real reason. So here's the truth no one tells you. Success is not built, it is uncovered. And what's blocking it is something you refuse to remove, not add, remove. There is a missing piece, and it's not what you think. It's not a morning routine. It's not a new productivity app. It's not discipline tips. It's not even a mentor. The missing piece is something internal, something you've been carrying for years, something that feels like you, but isn't serving you. In the next hour, I'm going to break down 5 rules, not popular rules, not easy rules, the ones that actually separate the men who transform from the ones who just talk about it. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what's been stopping you and exactly what to do about it. Rule 1. Kill the old identity. Remove the weak version of yourself. Rule 2. Control your environment. Environment shapes identity, not willpower. Rule 3. Non-negotiables. Overmotivation. Fixed standards outlast fleeting feelings. Rule 4. Embrace the sovereignty tax. Growth costs you people and comfort. Pay it. Rule 5. Identity lock. Become someone who cannot act differently. These 5 rules are not sequential. They are simultaneous. They work together like gears. Remove one, and the machine stops. Let's go deep on each one. Rule 1. Kill your old identity. This is the part most people avoid. Because it's uncomfortable. Because it's brutal. Because it requires a level of honesty most people are never willing to face. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you were truly honest with yourself? Not surface level honest. Not, yeah, I know I need to work harder. Honest. But truly, ruthlessly honest. The kind of honesty that makes you sit in silence. B. Because the truth is worse than you wanted it to be. Here's what that honest answer looks like for most men. You don't have a discipline problem. You have an identity problem. You are still protecting a version of yourself that you claim you want to change. Think about it. You say you want to be in great shape, but you still identify as someone who isn't really a gym person. You say you want financial freedom, but you still identify as someone who's not good with money. You say you want to level up, but you still identify as the guy from your old neighborhood, the guy your family expects you to be, the guy your friends are comfortable with. That identity is a cage, and you built it yourself. The version of you that you're protecting avoids discomfort, seeks approval from people who haven't earned the right to give it, chooses easy over necessary, chooses familiar over meaningful, keeps the peace even when peace is costing you progress. And here's the brutal truth. As long as that version exists, you will never evolve. Not because you're incapable, but because your brain won't allow it. Let me explain the science. There's a concept in psychology called identity consistency. Your brain is wired, deeply biologically wired, to act in ways that are consistent with who you believe you are. This isn't a motivational concept. It's neuroscience. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part of your brain, is constantly in conflict with your limbic system, the emotional, habitual part, and in most moments, the limbic system wins. Why? Because the limbic system is faster. It doesn't think, it reacts. And it reacts based on identity patterns built over years. So when you try to force new behavior without changing identity, Your brain experiences it as a threat. It says, this is not who we are, and it finds ways to bring you back. Excuses, fatigue. One more day. I'll start Monday. These aren't weaknesses. They're your brain protecting the identity you've allowed it to keep. This is why willpower alone never works. Willpower is a conscious, finite resource. Identity is unconscious and infinite. You cannot out-willpower your identity. You have to replace it. There's a famous study from the University of Hertfordshire. Researchers followed thousands of people trying to break habits. The ones who said, "I don't do that," were 3 times more likely to succeed than those who said, "I can't do that." One-word difference, massive result, because I can't acknowledges the behavior as a part of you. I don't declares a new identity, so the question is not, what should I start doing? The real question is, what must I stop being? You don't grow out of your old self, you cut it off, surgically, without negotiation. That means stop entertaining weak thoughts as if they're true. Stop negotiating with excuses as if they're valid. Stop giving yourself exit routes from hard things. Let me explain that last point. An exit route is anything that lets you retreat to your old identity without consequences. I'll just do it tomorrow. I'm not feeling 100% today. One time won't hurt. I deserve a break. Every one of those phrases is a door back to who you used to be. And every time you walk through that door, you reinforce the identity you're trying to kill. Here's a powerful reframe. What if you treated your old identity like a person you had to cut off? Not angrily, not dramatically, but clearly. And the way you cut off a toxic relationship, not because you hate them, but because who you need to become cannot exist in their presence. That's what killing the old identity really means. It's not self-hatred. It's a clean, surgical goodbye to the version of you that kept you small. How do you actually do this? 3 steps. Step 1. Name the old identity. Write down 5 phrases that describe how you currently see yourself. Honestly, not aspirationally, honestly. I'm someone who procrastinates. I'm someone who needs external validation. I'm someone who quits when things get hard. Write them down, look at them, then ask, is this who I want to be, or is this who I've let myself become? Step 2. Define the new identity in behavioral terms. Not, I want to be more disciplined, but I am someone who trains every day before 7 a.m. Not, I want to make more money, but I am someone who spends 2 hours daily building a skill that generates income. Your new identity must be specific. Vague identities produce vague results. Step 3. Close the exits. Remove the conditions that make the old identity easy to return to. If your phone is the exit, set app limits. If your friend group is the exit, create distance. If your home environment is the exit, we'll cover that in Rule 2. The man you want to become is not waiting for motivation. He is waiting for you to decide that the old version of you is no longer acceptable. Make that decision, and then close every door back. Rule 2. Control your environment. Before we talk about discipline, before we talk about mindset, before we talk about habits, you need to understand something that almost no one talks about. You are not in control of your life. Your environment is. That might feel uncomfortable. But let me prove it to you. Think about the last time you picked up your phone without deciding to. You didn't think, I am now choosing to open Instagram. You just did it. Think about the last time you stayed up too late. You didn't plan it. The environment kept you there. Think about the last time you ate something you said you wouldn't. It was there, you were tired, and the decision made itself. This is not weakness, this is behavioral science. 2015, Dr. Brian Wansink from Cornell University ran an experiment. He found that people who kept fruit visible on their kitchen counter weighed an average of 8 pounds less than people who kept chips and processed food on the counter. Same people, same willpower, same motivation, different environment, different results. Your environment is a silent decision maker. It is making choices on your behalf every single day without you even noticing. The apps you open first thing in the morning, the people you're around most, the conversations you tolerate, the content you consume before bed, the standards of those around you, all of it is shaping your defaults. And here's the dangerous part. It doesn't feel like control. It feels like normal. That's what makes it so powerful. That's why you relapse. That's why you fall back. That's why every new version of you dies within 3 weeks, because you're trying to install a new identity inside an old environment. Think of it this way. If you plant a tree in poisoned soil, water it, give it sunlight, give it everything, it will still die because the soil is poison. Your environment is your soil, and if your soil is toxic, no discipline will save you. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, puts it perfectly. The most successful people don't have more willpower. They have better systems. Their environments are designed so that the right behavior is the easiest behavior. So what does controlling your environment actually look like? It's not one big dramatic change. It's a series of strategic subtractions. Digital environment. Delete the apps that consume your time without returning value. Not just limit them, delete them. If you can pick them back up in 30 seconds, they're still in your environment. Remove what you don't want to become, because your feed is a mirror of your future self. Physical environment. Your workspace matters. If your desk is cluttered, your thinking will be cluttered. If your bedroom has a TV, your nights will be passive. If your fridge is full of comfort food, your evenings will be emotional. Design your spaces to make the right choice, the default choice. Put your workout clothes by the bed. Keep your books where your phone used to sit. Remove the friction from what you want to do. Add friction to what you want to stop. Social environment. This one is the hardest because it involves people, and most people are unwilling to reduce access to people who are comfortable but corrosive. Here's the research. Studies from Harvard Medical School show that behaviors, including obesity, smoking, happiness, and ambition, spread through social networks. You are not just influenced by the people you know, you are influenced by the people they know. 3 degrees of separation. Your friends' standards are becoming your standards. Their ceilings are becoming your ceilings. Their comfort zones are training your brain to see those zones as normal. I'm not telling you to cut everyone off dramatically. That's not practical. But you need to be honest about who is expanding you and who is keeping you contained. Expand your time with those who challenge you. Reduce your time with those who comfort your mediocrity. And start seeking environments where your current level isn't impressive. Because one of the fastest ways to change behavior is to be in a room where your old behavior doesn't fit. The upgrade principle. Every environment upgrade is an identity upgrade. New gym, new standard, new circle, new conversations, new city, new version of you, unanchored to the past. You don't have to move cities, but the principle applies everywhere. Upgrade what surrounds you, because what surrounds you becomes what defines you. Every input is a vote for who you become. Cast your votes carefully. Rule 3. Non-negotiables over motivation. Motivation is a lie. Not a complete lie, but a dangerous, seductive, unreliable lie. Here's the truth about motivation. It arrives uninvited, it departs without warning, and it always disappears exactly when you need it most. The day you're depressed, the day something goes wrong, the day your energy is low, the day life hits you out of nowhere. That is the day motivation abandons you. And if your entire system depends on motivation, then your entire system fails the moment life gets hard, and life always gets hard. Now, let me contrast that with the men who actually sustain change. They don't have more motivation than you. They don't wake up energized every day. They don't always feel like it. The difference, they don't operate on feelings. They operate on standards. Non-negotiables are different from goals. Goals are about where you're going. Non-negotiables are about who you are. A goal says, I want to lose 20 pounds. A non-negotiable says, I train every day, period. The non-negotiable doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't ask how tired you are. It doesn't negotiate with excuses. It just exists as a fact of your identity. Here's the psychological mechanism behind this. When you make a behavior non-negotiable, you remove it from the decision-making space. Every decision you make costs mental energy. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. And the more decisions you have to make, the worse your decisions become over time. But if something is truly non-negotiable, it's no longer a decision, it's a fact. Do I train today? Stops being a question. It just happens. The way you brush your teeth, the way you put on shoes before walking outside. No deliberation, no debate. The most powerful men you know don't decide whether to do the hard thing. They just do it because it's who they are. So how do you build your non-negotiables? Pick 3, no more. Why 3? Because more than 3 starts to feel like rules. Rules can be broken. 3 feels like identity. They need to be simple, clear enough that you can't misinterpret them. Absolute, no exceptions built in. Identity-based, connected to who you are, not what you're trying to achieve. Examples: I train every day. Not, I train when I can. Not, I try to train most days. Every day. I don't check my phone in the first hour of the day. Not, I try to limit my phone. Not, I check it only for important things. Not, in the first hour. I do at least 1 hour of deep work before I respond to anyone. 1 hour. Anyone. These are not rules you follow. They are declarations of who you are. Now here's the part that matters most. What happens when you break them? Break them once and you create doubt. Your brain registers, so this is negotiable. Break them twice and you create a pattern. Your brain registers, this is what we do when things get hard. Break them 3 times and your old identity is back. This is not dramatics. This is how identity works. Every action is a vote, and every broken non-negotiable is a vote for the person you're trying to leave behind. So protect your non-negotiables the way you protect your reputation. Because in a very real sense, they are your reputation to yourself. Let me give you a framework. Every morning before the day begins, remind yourself of your 3 non-negotiables, not as a motivation ritual, not as affirmations, but as a quiet, internal statement of fact. This is who I am. These things happen today. And at the end of the day, no long reflection needed. Just ask one question. Did I honor who I said I was today? Yes or no? That's your daily accountability system. Simple, clean, powerful. Rule 4, pay the sovereignty tax. Nobody tells you this part because it's not attractive, because it doesn't make for a motivational poster, but it's one of the most important truths about real growth. Success costs you people. It costs comfort. It costs validation, it costs familiarity, it costs the version of reality you've shared with others for years. And most people are not willing to pay that price. I call it the sovereignty tax. Every level of genuine growth you achieve has a social cost attached, and you cannot level up without paying it. Here's why. When you start to change, really change, the people around you feel it. Not because they hate you, not because they're evil, but because your growth holds up a mirror. Your discipline reminds them of their lack of it. Your ambition reminds them of their abandoned dreams. Your silence reminds them of their need for noise. Your new standards make their old standards visible, and most people do not want to see that. So instead of changing themselves, they change how they see you. They'll say, "You've changed," and they'll say it like an accusation. "You think you're better than us now. You're always busy. You used to be fun." And if you're not prepared for that, you'll shrink to fit in, to maintain the relationship, to keep the peace. And in doing so, you'll choose belonging over becoming. Let me be clear, this is not about cutting everyone off and going cold. It's not about becoming isolated or thinking you're superior. Growth doesn't require arrogance, but it does require distance. There are 3 kinds of people in your life right now. Radiators, people who add energy, challenge you, expand your thinking. Drains, people who consistently drain your energy, limit your thinking, or celebrate your mediocrity. Neutral, people who are simply present, neither growing nor regressing. You need to be honest about which category the people around you fall into. Not cruelly, not permanently, but honestly, because you cannot grow if your social circle keeps pulling the roots up. There's a concept in sociology called social homeostasis. Social groups, like organisms, seek to maintain equilibrium. When one member starts to change significantly, the group applies pressure to bring them back to the baseline. This is not conspiracy. This is human behavior. Groups need consistency to function. Your growth disrupts that consistency, so the group resists. The question is, will you let that resistance stop you? Here's how you pay the sovereignty tax without losing yourself. Accept the discomfort of being misunderstood. The man who is becoming something will always be misunderstood by people who are staying the same. This is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something real. Stop seeking approval for your transformation. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing growth. You don't need a vote. You don't need a consensus. You need a decision. Replace the relationships you outgrow. This is crucial and almost never discussed. Most advice on growth says, cut people off, but that leaves a void. and voids get filled with whatever is convenient. Intentionally seek people who are operating at or above the level you're reaching for, building things that challenge them, having conversations that expand you, not comfort you. You don't have to have 20 of these people. 1 or 2 changes everything. One mentor who is 5 years ahead of you on the path you're walking is worth more than a decade of solo effort. Understand loneliness is part of the process. There will be a period, and for some of you, you're in it right now, where you feel alone in your transformation. Your old circle doesn't understand you. Your new circle doesn't fully know you yet. You're in the gap. That gap is not a sign something went wrong. That gap is the corridor between who you were and who you're becoming. The men who make it through that corridor emerge with something that cannot be taken from them. A self that was chosen. A self that was built by decisions no one else can take credit for. A sovereignty. That's why it's called the sovereignty tax. Because what you pay in comfort and belonging, you gain in ownership of yourself. Pay it every time, without hesitation. Rule 5, lock your identity. This is the final level. This is where temporary change becomes permanent transformation. And most people never get here, not because they lack discipline, not because they lack knowledge, but because they never understood the difference between trying to change and becoming someone different. Let me explain. Most people approach change like a project. I'm going to work on my fitness for 90 days. I'm going to work on my finances this year. I'm going to be more disciplined. A project has an end. And when the project ends, so does the behavior. Identity doesn't work like a project. Identity works like a foundation. Once it's set, everything else is built on top. Behavioral congruence is the term I want you to understand. It refers to the state where your actions match your identity perfectly. No gap, no inconsistency, no negotiation. When you reach behavioral congruence, you don't try to train. You train because you're someone who trains. You don't try to resist bad habits. You don't indulge them because that's not who you are. You don't decide every day. You act because there is no other option. At this level, discipline disappears. Not because the hard things become easy, but because there is no alternative to consider. Think of a man who has never smoked, not a man who quit smoking, a man who never started. He doesn't resist cigarettes. He doesn't use willpower. It simply doesn't enter the consideration because it's not congruent with who he is. That is the goal, not to resist your old self constantly, but to become someone for whom the old self is a stranger. How do you lock the identity? Through accumulation of congruent actions over time. Every action that aligns with your new identity is a vote cast for that identity. Every vote makes the identity more real, more solid, more undeniable. This is why James Clear says, every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. But here's the extension of that idea that most people miss. After enough votes, you're not voting anymore. You're just being. The timeline varies, but research on identity formation suggests that somewhere between 60 and 90 days of consistent, congruent action, a new identity begins to feel natural. Not easy, not effortless, but natural, like, this is me, this is what I do. And here's what changes at that point. Breaking the identity becomes uncomfortable. Not doing the hard thing feels wrong. Missing a workout doesn't feel like relief. It feels like something missing. Wasting an evening doesn't feel like rest. It feels like friction. That inversion is the sign that identity lock is happening. 3 practices to accelerate identity lock. Practice 1. The daily vote. Every morning before the day begins, make one small decision that is congruent with your new identity. Not the hardest thing, just the first thing. Because the first action of the day sets the tone for every decision that follows. If your first decision is weak, your brain enters the day in old self mode. If your first decision is congruent, even small, your brain enters the day in new self mode. This is not motivational fluff, it's priming, and priming is one of the most well-researched phenomena in cognitive psychology practice too, the identity audit. Once a week, sit down for 10 minutes. No phone, no noise, just you and a blank page. Write down 3 actions from the past week that were congruent with your new identity. Then write down one action that was not. Don't judge the incongruent action. Just see it clearly. Ask, why did that happen? What environment, emotion, or trigger led to it? Then close the loop. What one thing can I change this week to reduce the chance of that happening again? That's the audit. 10 minutes. Once a week. Compounded over months. It's surgical self-engineering. Practice 3. The who am I statement. This one sounds simple. It's not. Write, not type. Write a one-paragraph statement of who you are. Present tense. Specific. Non-negotiable. Read it every morning. Not as inspiration. As declaration. I am someone who, not, I am trying to become, not, I want to be, I am. The difference in language is not semantic, it's neurological. Your brain responds differently to declarative identity statements than to aspirational ones. Aspirational, I want to be a disciplined person. This keeps the identity at a distance. Declarative, I am disciplined. This places the identity inside you. Over time, your brain begins to believe the declaration, and once your brain believes it, your behavior follows. So here's the truth. The man you admire is not ahead of you because he knows more. He is not ahead of you because the universe favored him. He is ahead of you because he became someone different. He removed what you are still protecting. He paid what you are still avoiding. He committed where you are still negotiating. He killed the identity that kept him small. He built the environment that built him. He established standards that didn't depend on how he felt. He paid the social cost without asking for a refund, and he locked in who he became until it was the only version of himself he knew. The missing piece was never effort. It was never motivation. It was never the right YouTube channel. It was identity, and identity is the one thing that no one can change for you. Not your mentor, not your environment, not your circumstances, not this video, only you. So now the question is simple, not comfortable. Not easy, simple. What are you willing to let die so the right version of you can live? That old version of you, the one that avoids, delays, negotiates, shrinks, he has had years, years of your choices, years of your time, years of your identity. He has taken enough. You don't need a sign. You don't need a better time. You don't need the circumstances to be right. You need one decision, made right now, held through the weeks ahead. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And the most dangerous place you can live is the version of yourself that almost became something. Don't be that man. This ends here. The old you ends here. And what comes next is entirely up to you.